Mailman joins us now. She was White House attorney for the Trump administration. May, good morning to you. You know, the judge issued a ruling of fraud before anybody testified, and this testimony is to determine exactly how much he's going to pay. Is anything President Trump says in court likely to help him?
No, not in this case.
That's the short answer.
So, I think that he's testifying mostly for the American public. Obviously, he's running for president. And I would say as far as court cases that tend to put him in a more favorable light, I would say Alvin Bragg's case is the top of that list. And then this is number two, because I think the American people sense that the punishment doesn't fit the crime. Here it's Trump saying, I'm a bazillionaire to the most sophisticated parties in the world, and then paying those parties what they were owed, and everybody is made better off. And in response to that, he's getting fined $250 million and losing the ability to do business in New York. And so regardless of what people think about the underlying misdeed, that mismatch feels weird. And I just think that Trump thrives off of victimhood, and it's a reason that he's going to want to show his face here. Well,
I mean, you're saying he will speak to the American people. Do you believe his defense discouraged him from taking the stand? Is this something he came up with himself, or did they strategize with him?
Oh, goodness. Well, if Trump was bound to testify, then there's only so much a lawyer can do to say no to that. I do think that the risks here are a little bit less than they would be in other cases, because I do think as a legal matter, the judge has already ruled fraud. And so there's already a basis for appeal just on that. So really, if you're already at rock bottom, you can't very much go below that. So there's not that much risk. And so I would say that his lawyers, even if they're maybe nervous, because you never know what's going to come out of Trump's mouth, it doesn't matter as much as it would in other circumstances.
Well, and you kind of began your answer with this deep sigh and said, oh, goodness, we heard that. What was that from? What place in your gut did you evoke this kind of exasperation that some probably American people have right now?
Yeah, well, I was never Trump's personal lawyer, but I think like a lot of people who worked in the White House, we as staffers feel like we're trying to protect the president, or we're trying to do what's best for him. And he's got a different idea of that. And, I think it's a misperception in the media that Trump always does what he wants to do. I would say actually 90% of the time, he goes with what his staff wanted to do. He didn't pull out of Afghanistan, for example, because he trusted his military staff to do the right thing. But there is that 10%, and that 10% of the time doesn't always go so well for him, including getting impeached for having a phone call with Zelensky, these types of things. So, is this in the 90% bucket where, he did come to an agreement with his lawyers, or is it in the 10% bucket? I don't know. But there was certainly there just had to be a back and forth here.
Is there a misperception in the media about his daughter, Ivanka Trump, who's expected to testify on Wednesday?
Well, I've heard some reporting that people think so. Mary Trump, Trump's relative, who's a federal judge, thought that Ivanka was going to throw her dad under the bus. I think that is incredibly wrong. Ivanka wants to say as close to nothing as possible. In fact, she tried to say nothing. She tried to get out of testifying entirely. After getting out of the case entirely, then she tried to push her testimony. She tried to make her depositions video rather than come to New York and do them in person. So this is a person who has tried to avoid this case entirely. If she was aching to try and impoverish her dad and her brothers, I think that she would have given more indication of that. And she has no incentive, obviously, to impoverish them. So I think you're going to hear a whole lot of nothing from Ivanka, looking at her lawyers, answering questions generally, declining to answer questions, those types of things.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.